What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical today, and we finally made it. We've graduated, everybody. The age of Nephilim is over. The time of Arks of Omen, the time of the Ark has come, because we finally get some events with Arks of Omen rules being used. Not so much GT level events yet. Those typically will have a rules lock 1 to 2 weeks ahead of time. So the fact that the Arks of Omen rules and the new data slate went into effect this past weekend means that most of those events will not have used it. But we do have some events on the smaller side that used it. So what we're going to do is break a little bit from tradition and friggin' talk about some little events where we saw Arks of Omen list come out and play. So that's good. One thing I just realized I forgot to do, I was gonna play the T5S2 Invitational trailer before this video, but I didn't do that. So sorry, everybody. Just pretend. Just go click on the channel. It's the like promoted channel video. If you go to the channel right now, and just watch that and then pretend that I played that beforehand. But yeah, we have a lot of cool stuff coming on. The next couple weeks, you can expect from me like a channel update video. I'm gonna do a giveaway. I've had this stack of product to give away for 40,000 subscribers. It hasn't happened yet. I promise I'm going to do it this week. But yeah, we got that coming up. We got a lot of changes for the channel, as well as T5S2 Invitational starting beginning of February, which is sweet. So we're going to have tons of live content happening. It's going to be good. Who is psyched? Unless you're going to LVO. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Dudes is in chat. How's it going, Dudes? How's it going, everybody else? Burn all area terrain. We did have a discussion about area terrain in the Discord. I do like. Man, area terrain is just awkward and weird. I wish that people moved to the obstacle terrain, but nobody did that. So whatever. Commander Cha-Cha, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate you. Wow, cool trailer. Such a cool trailer that played at the beginning of the video. Am I a Harlequin player? No, I've never played Harlequins in my life. I could, though. I think in 8th edition, I feel like I could have played Harlequins, but I didn't. Candy NJ playing. Painting up some Iron Hands? No shame. That's fair. Might as well. Hope everyone had a good weekend, by the way. If anybody got some Arks of Omen games in, that'd be cool. I know I streamed a lot. It was still sort of Nephilim time, so I streamed a lot of Nephilim over the weekend. And yeah, hope to play some more Arks of Omen this week. I'm kind of grinding. I want to maybe hit a tournament this weekend. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm feeling it quite yet, Chad, but we'll figure something out. So go follow me on Twitch. You can watch my journey through the garbage fire that is the Tyranid Codex. Although we do have some Tyranids to play right here. Everyone's just 8 Star Weavers away from being a Harlequin player. Not wrong. You are absolutely not wrong. Yeah, so I've basically grabbed a couple lists. I don't remember. I think I have 10 lists here that went undefeated at events this weekend that used the Arks of Omen rules. So what we're just going to do is break them down. And we have some, I think, some expected representation if people have been sort of paying attention to tier lists and the things that people are expecting to be strong. A couple outliers getting a little show in there. So maybe we'll see a little bit of a shakeup from what has been expected up until this point. But obviously, it is RTT levels that we're talking about. So these are all 3-0 lists. They went undefeated in one-day events. And that does mean that there's sort of a grain of salt to be thrown in there with these lists. RTTs are a lot dicier than a GT. Going undefeated in a GT requires you to be much more consistent because you have to win 5 straight games instead of 3 or 6 usually. So you can go 3-0. You can just draw good matchups. And especially the RTTs that have a lot of undefeated players that are very large, the chances that you just hit a bunch of matchups that are pretty good for you are not only just, you know, actual mechanical matchups, but also sort of there's a player skill is relatively high. I'm going to move my camera. There I am. That's much better. Was guard allowed? Yes. There was. Are we going to have a T5S2 tournament soon? Yeah. So the Invitational is starting in February. We should see regular pods in the in the server start up within the next 2 weeks, I think. Certainly before then. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. Just talking about some lists. So a little bit low key, a little laid back, but we're going to talk about some stuff that's going to be good in the new season. And I'm psyched because it's a whole new metagame. Let's progress. All right. Starting with, we got a Copenhagen RPT. So I think Copenhagen is a Discord server. And I'm sure somebody in there who's in there can correct me if I'm wrong. I think they do in-person events, but they also do TTS events. So this might have been TTS. Actually, I bet I could just look. Am I in their Discord server right now? I do enter and leave a lot of Discord servers pretty often. I think I'd have to rejoin. Unless I'm just missing it. All right. Well, I'm sure someone can update me on what the deal is with that. But anyway, this one is a Copenhagen event. So a Copenhagen RTT. Hope you guys can see everything. Oh, it looks like the title has been cut off of my capture here. Let me fix that momentarily here, chat. I apologize. Just make sure everyone can see the players' names. It's important. Give credit where it's due. There we go. Hello. All right. Does that show up on stream? It does. Perfect. Nailed it. And we can just like do this. The little resize. Look at that. Oh, now it doesn't fit the whole list on there though. High production value. That's what everyone's here for. All right, we nailed it. Perfection. We did it. So yeah, this is a Custodes list coming out of Emperor's Chosen. So Custodes got all their buffs reverted, and I think benefit pretty highly from the ally mechanics. So for those who don't know, in Arks of Omen, obviously you have a Battle Brothers detachment that you can bring that's an ally detachment. And it is either a super heavy auxiliary like we see here, or a patrol detachment, and there's a list of factions that you can bring alongside you. Like usually Imperium can bring additional Imperium or Agents of Imperium or Imperial Knights detachments. You can also bring Leagues of Votan for whatever reason. But mostly I think it's going to be Imperial Knights since they get Agents of the Imperium and you don't break a lot of your faction abilities. So in this one, the Emperor's Chosen guys get to keep all their martial katas because the armigers in the list get Agents of the Imperium. But then they also get the benefit of having that pretty strong backline shooting from these Armiger Hellbrands. The other thing is that previously, in some instances, you would break access to your secondary objectives if you elected to take allies in the Nephilim version. That is no longer the case. Now, your secondary objectives only check the faction alignment of your Arks of Omen detachment. So we have one Emperor's Chosen Arks of Omen detachment, so that unlocks all of the Custodian secondaries. Then we also bring in Imperial Knights in there. And there's some room for play in there because there are a lot of secondaries that don't necessarily require you to like focus on your faction units in order to score them. And Custodes are actually an example of one of them because they have and I've forgotten its name, Stand Vigil secondary, if I remember correctly, is what it's called. It is called Stand Vigil. So you get victory points if you control more objectives in the center of the table outside both players' deployment zone than your opponent at the end of the battle round. But it doesn't specify that those objectives have to be held by custodians. So you can do things like bring in non-custodian units and then score that objective. There is also you want to be scoring Might of Terra is the other one that they have, where it's kind of a grind them down. You need to not lose any custodians and kill somebody with custodians. And if you build in, for example, you're playing a detachment that brings in like Leagues of Votan or something, and you want to play Sagittars or Land Fortresses or something as that really resilient front line, and you just have custodians shooting like Caladius grav tanks in the back, you can pull focus from your custodians, kill an enemy unit with that, but then if your opponent kills so many Votan, poor little squats getting smooshed over here, it doesn't matter, you'll still score that because all you need to do is have destroyed somebody with a custodian, not lose any custodians. So pretty cool interaction there, I think, from the Custodes. Yeah, I did shorten some of these, chat, so it's 3 Venerable Contemptors at 155 each. They're not 52 and 51 and 1/3 points, so 51.6 points each. That would be a pretty good, yeah. So then the other benefit that Custodians get, obviously, is their core infantry now get objective secured back. So we have to see these 3 individual Alarius Custodians in the elite slot. Those guys are all OBSEC, so they can just teleport, roll for some charges onto people's objectives, and if they get it, they just take them. So it's a Dawn Eagle Jetbike Shield Captain with Auric Exemplar and Superior Creation. So he's got the every time he kills a model, he gets another attack, which is pretty cool. Just basically kind of double damage against infantry, not quite. But he does have Tip of the Spear, so most infantry he's hitting and wounding on 2s on the charge. And then every time he kills them, he gets to swing again. Superior Creation for the 5-up damage ignore, but no Trajan in this list, which is interesting. We have one big unit of Custodian Guards, 3 Alarius Custodians, 3 Venerable Contemptors, a Vexilla's Praetor, with the Fulminaris Aggressor. I actually don't know what that is. We might there might be some deep technology in this video, chat, that I'm gonna have to look up. So grants light. It grants ignoring light cover to core and character units. So you can shoot through cover with the Venerable Contemptors and the Virtus Praetors. So that's sick. All right, I like that. It also ignores heavy cover, but that's less useful. Then 6 Virtus Praetors, 2 units of 3, and then the 2 Armored Halverins back here with Hunters of Beasts. Give them the benefit against vehicles and monsters. Moirax with Conversion Beamer seem better with Hunter of Beasts. Yeah, maybe. I think the difference is that the Halverins have a broader range of units they want to shoot at. Like average 8 shots at 3 damage is pretty good against basically any target. Can't see why Guard doesn't just annihilate. Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe they dodged Guard. I mean, if we're gonna judge every list by how quickly Guard annihilates it, then we'll never talk about any list. We'll just talk about Guard for a bit. And we do have some Guard to talk about later. So I think at the GT level, get ready to see some Guard hit pretty hard. And we did see some GTs get taken down by Guard. I think there was one GT that had first and second taken down by Guard this weekend. But that was using Nephilim with the 9th Ed Guard rules, which is, a whole thing. So pretty cool list. We have a couple other lists from Copenhammer. We have a Disciples of Be'lakor. We're seeing these guys see a lot of play right now. They're actually getting tons and tons of play, which is sweet. That's actually super cool. We see 2 War Dog Carnivores in this one from House Korvax. One of them upgraded with Blessing of the Dark Master, which is fun on the little guy. I feel like he's just going to still die, but, might be tough to kill. And then in the Arks of Omen detachment, Be'lakor himself, a Change Caster with Endless Grimoire, so that allows you to gain additional spells as the game goes on. It gives you an action you can do. A Torment Bringer on Hellflayer, and then obviously it is Disciples of Be'lakor, so you have to bring an equal number of every Allegiant unit. So we have to be cycling through the 4 different Chaos Gods. 1 unit of Bloodletters, 1 unit of Demonettes, 1 unit of Nurglings, 2 units of Beasts of Nurgle. These are such as the sleeper hit from the... so this is 6 Beasts of Nurgle, and we're seeing these now pop up in basically every list. I think they got a points decrease. They went down 10 points, if I remember correctly. They were already sort of borderline playable, but I think they just got so overshadowed by Flamers that you never really wanted to look at anything but Flamers. But now that, we're in Disciples of Be'lakor. Be'lakor has his Warlord trait where he can give them full rerolls, so you can fish for... although I think their ability triggers on 6s to wound. Let me double check what Beasts of Nurgle do. So they have the ability, on a 6, their weapon converts to mortal wounds, and I don't remember if it's hits or wounds. It is hit roll. So yeah, they just bypass the entire attack sequence if they roll a 6 to hit, and so giving them full rerolls, despite the fact they're weapon skill 4, you can just be fishing for 6s, and they can do a billion mortal wounds with those full rerolls. That's super gooper cool. They're also, you know, they're for 70 points a model. There are 7 wounds at T6 with a 4+ demonic invulnerability against range, which is pretty good. It's the point per wound conversion at 10 points with like an unignorable 4+ save is solid. It's better than most of your 1 wound infantry, and on top of that, in fact, it's better than all your 1 wound infantry. I think they're all at least 12 points. I guess not pink horror or blue horrors. But on top of that, if you don't kill them at the end of the phase, they're just regenerating back to full. So you're occasionally gonna spike a bunch of invulnerable saves, and these Beast of Nurgle are not gonna die. They have a 6-inch heroic intervention. They're beast keyworded, which is appropriate because they're named beasts. But the models are enormous. They're physically very large. But the beast keyword means that they can go through walls, so they don't suffer the issue that we're going to see a lot of these newfound. I'm mostly thinking of Thunderwolf cavalry. We have some Thunderwolf cavalry to talk about later today too, chat. And those are cavalry keyworded, not beasts, so they can't go through walls. But the beasts sure frickin' can, and that's sick. So we got beasts, we got a couple fiends in there, 1 unit of flamers, 1 unit of fleshhounds, and then those carnivores. Pretty cool. Kind of a nice, well-rounded list, I think, and I think that's what we're going to be seeing out of a lot of Demons lists moving on to the future. Is that they end up being very technical. They have a wide variety, like a deep toolbox of units that they're going to take, rather than just spamming flamers over and over and over. Oh, you can res them and then heal them to full. Is that a... What is that from, chat? What does that? Is that a stratagem? Oh, it is. Yeah, it is a stratagem. So while an enemy unit is within 6, each time that unit flees, you use it at the start of the morale phase. Then everything in your army gets that 6-inch aura where you regenerate wounds. If you have not lost any wounds, then you get a guy back, and then he heals. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't even know about that synergy. That's super duper good. Oh my god. But we are going to be seeing Beast of Nurgle in other lists too. I don't think it's just Disciples of Bellicor. But that's pretty sweet. Souping Knights don't ruin mono-faction bonuses like Space Marine Doctrines? No, because the Knights get Agent of the Imperium. And I believe Agent of Chaos too. To soup in with other detachments. I think the problem was, yeah, there were some issues with it. I think mostly that people didn't want to pay for the additional command point cost for them. So a lot of times you didn't see Knights get brought in, because there was a tail end of like Knockmund where you started to see Knights get bring in once the new Knights Codex came out and had that Agent of Imperium technology in it. But then the 6 CP cap and having to pay 3 CP for a super heavy auxiliary was super brutal. But now you don't have to do that. You get it for free. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Armigers and War Dogs see some play. Wow, yeah, that Beast of Nurgle interaction is insane, chat. I had no idea that was the case. That's very good. Hot damn! All right, sick. Good stuff. Beast of Nurgle. MVPs. So let's move on. We have some Iron Hands to talk about. What a shocker. One of the best armies in the game. Let's talk about some Iron Hands. Now, every time I see one of these Space Marine lists, we have a couple Space Marine lists on the list today. I think I just like see in my mind every single fear that someone had about the Nephilim or the Arks of Omen, detachment abilities, where you can just basically spam one battlefield roll over and over and over again. And I think Marines are, especially given the fact that Marines are incredibly cheap now, I think Marines are going to be doing that. Are they restricted to Freeblade? They might. We can work it out, I think. Yes, it is restricted to Freeblade, chat. So if you have a super heavy auxiliary and that contains a single Freeblade unit, that unit gains Agent of the Imperium. So there you go. So it's not, yeah, you can't take every name. But I mean, Freeblades are still pretty strong anyway, so I think it's okay. So this one is on Iron Hands list. I think it's just running regular Iron Hands. We get a Master of Sanctity with Catechism of Fire, Recitation of Focus. So +1 to hit, +1 to wound to the closest visible, or the closest eligible, for core units. And he has Wise Orator. So we get the double litanies casting on 2s. A Chief Librarian. And we're seeing a lot more Chief Librarians now. I wonder if the points cuts have finally given you the extra points you needed to get the Chapter Command upgrade for those guys, which we have not seen in a while. And then a Tech Marine with Target Protocols and Ironstone. So mostly going to be buffing up the Redemptor brick, I think, back here. So we can give... the Ironstone can go on to the Repulsor Executioner, then the Psychic Fortress hits the Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and just gives everybody a 5+ invulnerable save. Silent King gives +3 CP for no reason. Silent King gives +3 CP because you have to bring Suriken. He wants you to have additional CP now so that you can make up for having a not very good subfaction. So 2 units of Infiltrators, 5 Assault Intercessors, a standard unit of Intercessors with Stalkers, and a Thunderhammer for free. Or I guess the Thunderhammer costs a little bit, right? You don't have to pay for Power Fist with Thunderhammers, you do. 5 Aggressors, so Bulletstorm Aggressors in this one. That's interesting. Because we're not really going to be jumping to Tactical Doctrine almost ever. I wonder if they're just sort of a counterpunch. And maybe we're a little bit worried about clearing hordes with the list. So we just want to be able to... They don't have like rerolls or anything. So you can give them +1 to hit, +1 to wound, which is good from the Chaplain. But then no hit rerolls available to those guys. So that's a very interesting pick. 2 Redemptors with all the fixins, Gatling, and Macroplasmas. 1 unit of Suppressors. Love these guys. I talked about them in my video yesterday. I think Iron Hands and Imperial Fist both are going to absolutely love Suppressors now. 90 points, you get 9 autocannon shots, which if you're stuck in Devastator Doctrine or AP2, and then for Iron Hands, obviously, you can use that 12-inch move, not suffer the penalty, reroll once to hit, and just like sit in the back and just continuously peck at people. Especially again in the Marine Mirror match, like there's a non-zero chance those guys just wipe a 5-man squad of Marines every turn, which is crazy. Warsuits are probably just better than Redemptors for the points. Maybe. Warsuits are so much easier to kill. I think you... and also like not core keyworded. Their melee's way worse. The forward deploys really like feels really good for warsuits, but once you put them on the table, you realize that like and functionally the difference is enormous because they die to a stiff breeze. If they get stuck in melee, Redemptors will just punch themselves out of melee or blow up a tank or whatever, and Invictors really struggle with that a lot of times. And the shooting is not amazing. It's 6 2 damage or 9 2 damage shots, right? And then like 6 1 damage shots. So you compare that to a Redemptor that's firing like D6 3 damage and then what 8 onslaught shots, the D3 Icarus rockets, and then between 4 and 8 1 damage from the Storm Bolters, and it's pretty night and day, especially with the Redemptors being so tanky on the swingback. So I don't think it's like quite as cut and dry as that. So then a bunch of Bolt Sniper Eliminators, interestingly, with no carbines on them, so they can't do the double move. I wonder what maybe we're like trying to play for, I don't know, enemy characters or something. We're just taking the Bolt Sniper specifically. But the Bolt Sniper Rifle is pretty well rounded, so I guess that's fine because you also get the hyper frag rounds if you want to be shooting into infantry and stuff. But man, the Lance Fusel is just so hard to pass up that just flat 3 damage shot, which is so nice. And then 6 Eradicators. The Heavy Melta Rifle upgrade being free on those guys is insane. And then I think also any faction that can allow them to move and shoot those without penalty is just loving it. Absolutely loving it. You also get the Demelta upgrade for free, right? Or do you? Yeah, that might cost you points, actually. And I don't feel like there's a reason not to take it. The Multi-Melta is a free upgrade, so interesting that we're not playing that. So you cut the extra 2 damage, guaranteed damage, for an additional shot, which is very good. But I guess the guaranteed 2 damage is pretty nice if you are keeping them at 24 inches, but the multi-melt I think goes absolutely ham if you get to within 12. So that extra shot is also an additional 2 damage, d6 plus 2 instead of just d6. The d6 can be swingy. Now, I think the most interesting pick in the bottom here is the Repulsor Executioner. I talked yesterday about how I wasn't really impressed with Repulsor Executioners still. They have a lot of shots on them. They have 2 Gatling cannons, plus the Laser Destroyer, plus all the little Icarus guns and Storm Bolters and stuff. But for 250 points, it's a lot. The 2 Laser Destroyers aren't that exciting. And I don't know. It's just not a particularly like super exciting profile. But again, just like I talked about with the regular Repulsor, as a kind of a focal point of all of your buffs, it seems totally fine. You get the target protocols reroll on the Laser Destroyer. So as long as you're triggering your Aquilon optics, you move half distance, you get +1 to hit on the turret weapon. You hit on 2s, rerolling 1s, and then you get 1 rune roll. So it probably converts both Laser Destroyer shots, and then you just have a ton of little 1 damage AP2 shots that are just going to be pecking away at infantry and stuff. So that seems totally fine. And then as a 16 wound T8 model to be Iron-Stoned also seems pretty good. Silent King is a dynastic agent. He does force you into his faction chat because he has a dynasty keyword is the problem. The Necron Codex specifies that you can't have units from multiple dynasties in the same detachment, and because he's Saracen keyworded, he breaks that if you bring him with another detachment. But he's the only, I believe he's the only dynastic agent that is dynasty keyworded, which is why it's weird and like fringe case, which is strange. Gets +1 hit vehicles already. Is it? Did I just forget what Repulsor Execution is? Is it +1 hit vehicles or +1 when you move half? It used to be move half. If it's only against vehicles, it's actually way worse. It is. Oh no, it's just when it shoots. Oh, okay, just kidding. All right, that's much easier, I guess. You can use your full 10-inch movement and still get the +1 to hit. So that's solid. All right, I'll buy that. It's pretty good. Seems fine. So that's a good one. All right, I like it. Next up, we're up to another RTT now. Bismarck 2 Rivers. We got some Space Wolves to talk about, chat. Let's go. Now, I did talk about in my video yesterday about Thunderwolf Cavalry being like the most efficient. One of the most efficient points per like wound and attack in the game, just in terms of raw stats. For 35 points a model, Thunderwolf Cavalry are ludicrous. And so, Drew Ward over here obviously had the same opinion, because he's running a Master Sanctity on bike, a Phobos Librarian, this one also cheap librarian with Armor of Russ, and Psychic Mastery again, another instance of Psychic Mastery, so that +1 to cast. And then 15 Wolfguard Terminators, 3 units of 5, with those free Thunderhammer Storm Shields and Cyclone Missile Launchers. You gotta pay for the Cyclone, but you get all the other stuff. I guess less expensive, right? Is it free for the Thunderhammer on those guys? It feels so random who actually has to pay for their Thunderhammers now. I know that infantry squads typically do, but and Deathwing Terminators don't. Okay, I guess these guys do get it for free, so they're just paying 34 points a model plus the Cyclone Missile Launcher. Do you think custom Space Marines or selected tax will be competitive? Well, if you look at this one is a Space Wolf successor with the classic Space Wolf combo. So Born Heroes, Whirlwind of Rage. So you keep your Super Doctrine. You get +1 to hit on the charge, so you keep that chapter tactic, and then you get Exploding Sixes on the charge, which then combos with the Super Doctrine, Exploding Sixes. So you get Tesla Sixes if you are in Assault Doctrine, which we do have a couple ways to put people into Assault Doctrine. All Thunderhammers should be free. Should they? At least pay 5 points for the 3 damage weapon. I don't know. What is the purpose of a Power Fist if a Thunderhammer is free? I could just take this. I could take this Power Fist, this -1 to hit guy, or I could take this dramatically better 3 damage weapon for the same points cost. I guess it's +1 AP, but you want extra damage almost every time. Now that you're probably AP3 on that thing, which is totally fine. Can we get a boarding action turnaround TTS? I'd like to do that. So I don't have access to the rules right now for boarding actions, and I don't know what they are. But if anybody wants to step up and run that, then I'm totally into it. Power Fists look cool, do they? Do they look cool? I like it. I'm a Thunderhammer stan. I'm a Power Axe stan. I wish Power Axes were like more meta. That would be good. All right. Anyway, so we got the 15 Wolfguard Terminators. We got some Wolfen to hold out an objective and trade with somebody who charges them. There's 2 units of 3 aggressors in the list. I don't know what they're armed with, but it does give you kind of an outlet for tactical doctrine. So if you play the aggressors kind of far forward, you can like protect objectives with them. They're just sort of annoying to remove, and then you have an AP1 sort of source once you go to tactical doctrine, because you have to survive a turn in tactical before you get to assault, and then all your abilities turn on. We have 1 Longfang squad with grav cannons, and then these guys a lot of times will use Cunning of the Wolf to outflank, and then they can come in the side. You can also just use the normal strategic reserve now that it's free, although it's a little bit more powerful than normal strategic reserve because you can come in your opponent's deployment zone and off your opponent's table edge if you want to pay the CP for it. But then you can use Keen Senses to ignore the move and shoot penalty with your grav cannons, so that's pretty good. But with grav cannons, the grav cannons are free, and with grav cannons you can just, because they're such a long range, unlike multi-meltas, you can just sit them in the back and shoot and move and shoot and peek out of cover and use that long range and Keen Senses to ignore the moving. And then I think the pièce de résistance here is 18 Thunderwolf Cavalry. So for 240 points a unit, you get 3 Thunderwolves with Lightning Claw Storm Shield, 3 guys with Thunder Hammers. So they're 210 points base, plus the 30 points for bringing 3 Thunder Hammers. And that's a lot of damage. That's such beef, chat. Now, the problem with these guys compared to the Beast of Nurgle we talked about earlier is, I mean, it's the same volume of a unit. The Thunderwolf Cavalry are physically very large. So you have a tough time maneuvering them, and they can't go through walls, unlike all the other stuff. The problem with them was previously in the previous version, you would compare them almost directly to Vanguard veterans. And once a Thunderwolf Cav guy was souped up with upgrades, they were around 50, 55 points, I think. And a Vanguard veteran was like 27. So they were not quite twice as expensive. They were a little bit less. They got way more attacks, and they were much more survivable, but they didn't get the ability to move through walls. So despite the fact that your like output per point was pretty comparable, and your average threat range is longer on Thunderwolf Cavalry. The problem is you can't go in straight lines with Thunderwolf Cavalry, whereas Vanguard veterans can just go wherever, or Wolfguard veterans, I should say. Wolfguard with jump packs. And so Thunderwolf Cavalry, there was just never a situation, in my opinion, that you would ever consider taking Thunderwolf Cavalry. But now that they are they're basically the same cost as a Wolfguard veteran, and have dramatically better stats, but they just lose that maneuverability. I think that is now just fine. Like, I think you just brute force your way through the situations where they're being mitigated by terrain or by your opponent. And then a lot of people also point out the fact that because they can't go through walls, they can be jammed easily, so you can prevent them from moving with careful positioning. But obviously in Space Wolves, it's a little tougher because you have to worry about heroic interventions. They only get a 3-inch heroic intervention. If you play Space Wolves proper, you can get a 6-inch out of your characters, I believe, right? Or I think all the characters can do it, but you can get a 6 out of the regular guys. Is that how that strategy works? I can't find it now. But you can't quite just move up outside of engagement range and sit on them, because they will just come and kill you, and that would be bad for you. So I think that they are now cheap enough that they can sort of get around their weaknesses, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more lists like this come out of the woodwork as we move on. Power fist should be negative 5 points. Just make yourself cheaper. Let's go. Power axes should be AP 4-2 damage. Fists should be AP 2-3 damage. That's what a hammer is. Swords should be AP 4-1 damage extra attack. What's a hammer then, dudes? No idea about the boarding action rolls. It's 500 points. Yeah, it's like a totally different game. The core mechanics are the same, but obviously, as I said in the article, line of sight and distance measuring is different in boarding action. And then the missions are like wildly different. Your army doesn't, your team doesn't deploy together. It deploys, I think, in entry passages that the mission lays out, and it's like super different. Which power malls were a thing? Yeah. Remember when there was a hot minute where the build for Vanguard veterans was like a power mall and it was like a lightning claw power mall or something, or chainsword power mall. It was like super bizarre. It was this weird combination of weapons because you could eke out like a third of a point of damage out of them or whatever. Just make power fist not -1 to hit. I like that. That makes sense to me. Fist +2 strength, AP 2-3 damage. Hammer ×2 strength, AP 2-3 damage, -1. All right, I'll buy that. Could you imagine the whinging though if fists, even if they upgraded fists, if fists were not X2 damage, because everyone would be like, but they've been X2 damage or X2 strength for 30 years. Why change them now? And you're like, well, because it's they don't differentiate themselves enough. Or just do the thing that they did in Heretic Astartes, where it just becomes like power weapon, and it has the same. Every one of them has the same profile. There's no way they don't do that in the new version, for sure. At least with some of those weapons, like mauls, axes, swords, probably all become the same profile, I imagine. Any good Grey Knights lists? Not yet, chat. I'm a little worried for Grey Knights. We'll see if they have they have what it takes to compete with the rest. Fist +1 to hit. Let me tell you, Torgaradon's fist at least should be +1 to hit. How do you miss with that thing? It's like the size of a car. All right, we'll keep with this one. We got some with this RTT. We have some more demons to talk about. This is just a regular Chaos Demon, so not Disciples of Be'lakor. So we trade Be'lakor, although we could still take Be'lakor. I guess we're just not doing it. We trade Be'lakor for access to the Greater Demons, so that's nice. And then I think the one weakness of demons here is going to be that just the fact that they have to build everything into one detachment, and it's just going to be really awkward for them for a hot minute. So we have the fully upgraded Bloodthirster, the Warlord with Brazen Hide, Indomitable Onslaught, Argath, the King of Blades. I love it. We have a Change Caster, an Infernal Rapturous, and a Herald on a Seeker Chariot, and then a bunch of troops, Bloodletters, Nurglings, Plague Bearers. Although it looks like, yeah, we're using elites for our compulsory because the Nurglings don't actually count. And then Fleshhounds, 10 Seekers of Slaanesh in the fast attack slot, and 15 Screamers. And I think the Seekers, yeah, 17 points a model for the Seekers. I think Seekers and a lot of the fast stuff for Chaos Demons got a lot better just with points breaks. And the Seekers, I think, are one of them. 17 points a model for that profile is very strong. And the same thing for Fleshhounds of Khorne. So the fast attack looking a little bit better. Let's pull up the Seeker profile real quick here, chat. Oop, I clicked on the Chariot. Yeah. So the Seeker is coming out the gate with 4 base attacks because it's a Demonette at AP 2, and then 2 additional Malefic attacks. So AP 1 but can't be modified, which is like kind of, or AP 0 but can't be modified, which is kind of whatever. But they're 16 inches, so they have a super long threat range, and then they just attack 6 times for 17 points. And especially that AP2, Strength 4 AP2 in a universe where there's no Armor of Contempt is actually very lethal now. Whereas previously they would hit like a Space Marine and kind of bounce off. A big unit of these ladies will just vaporize a 3+ save infantry. Just hit a knock a 3+ save down to a 5 and then punch it 40 times. Seems pretty strong. 41 times, I guess. For 17 points, chat. That's the same points cost as like an intercessor. And you get this profile. Space Marine's still looking a little wild in the comparison there. Unfortunately, not beast keyworded. They are cavalry, so they can't go through walls like the hounds can. But that is a lot of damage for 17 points a model. Real strong there. Pretty good. 210 Beasts of Nurgle. Yeah, because some of these events, I think the lists were submitted before Battlescribe updated. People just wrote out their lists, so they flipped the the number of models in the unit and the points value. So they put points value first. Most people put it last, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so 210 Beasts of Nurgle, but for just 3 points. Can you imagine? That's so little. But we have Beasts of Nurgle coming back. Blood Crushers coming back. I haven't been quite as impressed by the Blood Crushers. They seem very expensive. But 4 wounds a model for those guys is pretty good. It's kind of annoying to chew through. We have the Skull Cannon in there to at least have a gun in the list, which is pretty sweet. And then an Exalted Flamer. But no regular Flamers, which is interesting. This is the Exalted. We do have a Change Caster in the list, so there is an out for Infernal Flames, but we're just taking the offensive spells, Infernal Gateway and Bolt of Change. That's so tough to get off, though, because the Change Caster doesn't have any cast bonuses. So if you're trying to roll like 7s and 8s, just hard roll him. He might just be there to do Warp Rituals, I guess, because he can use the 1 CP strat to Warp Portal himself into the center of the table and then do a ritual. Whoop! And if he's hiding behind 3 Beasts of Nurgle, it's unlikely he dies. Those guys will stick around. Herd Guard are terrible if you don't take Tanksman or Kazarkin. I mean, if you don't take tanks, like... I don't believe that they're terrible if you don't take Kazarkin. I think Kazarkin are too strong. Most likely Kazarkin are too strong, but I don't think that they're required for the army to be competitive. If you don't take tanks, like... Why are you playing Guard, I think? Every faction has these, these key unit types that you need to be playing in order to... the balance of the faction is constructed around, and if you're not playing them, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you playing Eldar without taking Aspect Warriors? Like, why are you playing... you're playing, Yunari without the Incarn. You're playing... I don't know. There's a lot of, you're playing Tyranids without Hive Tyrants, right? There's like these unit types that the Codex is really pushing super hard, and if you're not playing those, then of course the army's going to be bad. You're not playing the reason to play the army. You can, I think there are other options that you can take instead of the Kazarkin teams to sort of fill a similar role. I think Adolin Rough Riders have been kind of overshadowed by Kazarkin. Because Kazar can do a similar thing where they can stand in a ruin. If your opponent moves forward, they go and they just murder them. Rough Riders can do something similar, but obviously melee instead of range, so it's tougher. Their threat range isn't as long, and they soak up a lot of the same like orders and aura and command phase effects that Kazarkin would do. So you're just not going to play them. But I think that you're not going to play both of them together because they're both going to do the same thing. But I think that if Kazarkin get nerfed like into the absolute dirt, you just start playing those guys. I think there's a lot of depth in the faction past just what just the super busted stuff. Yeah, taking vehicles and knights. Yeah, Sentinels are amazing. The indirect fire is great. Yeah, for sure. For sure. 3 Bane Blades. Just mean tank spam. I don't think you necessarily have to take tank spam. I think a balance list is going to be the way to go anyway. with it is where it is right now, I think like a lot of people are on like 5 or 6 tanks, and that is a lot of tanks. You could probably take 3 or 4 tanks and just be fine. Blood Crushers are kind of anti-tank. So yeah, the issue, I actually played a similar matchup on stream. This is against Disciples of Bellicor though. And the issue was that once you try to hit T8 with this army, you kind of just run out of things to do if you're not playing the Greater Demons. Because I think the whole idea of Demons is that like your small stuff is so good at trading and putting pressure on your opponent, but it's not very good at killing anything that's particularly resilient. You know, we just talked about how strong those Seekers are, but if they hit a T8 model, they're entirely strength 4. They're just going to bounce. They're not going to do nothing. So you really need the Bloodthirster to come in and do that, and I don't think the Blood Crushers quite do that. They're like strength 5 and 7, right? They're like fine. They do mortal wounds pretty well, which is pretty solid. But I think that for 200 points, you're hoping that, I don't know, that they do a little bit more damage on the charge. No idea. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I haven't played Demons in a while. Yeah, the other thing, I guess, is like Flamers did fulfill that role a little bit because Flamers killed everything. And then also Mortal Wounds off of Lords of Change. But we're not playing Lords of Change anymore. But the ability to drill Mortal Wounds between... Like, a Lord of Change would get its +1 to cast, so it would net, like, +3, and then just dump 3 or 4 psychic powers into somebody. And then, like, Bellicor would dump another psychic power, and then, what do you call it? The little guy, the Fate Skimmer would hit you with another psychic power. But the problem is now that you don't have access to the +1 to cast, so your psychic phase is way worse. So maybe, yeah, I don't know. You're not killing units with that, you're just weakening them, and then you can finish them with the Demons, but that feels like a lot of... with the cavalry, but it's a lot of investment. It's a ton of investment. Do I think the Ogryn Bodyguard allowing Castellan command squads into Tempestus detachments will get nerfed? I don't know what that interaction is, chat, to be honest. All right. Let's continue. So we have another one. This time, Chaos Knights. This is a super interesting Chaos Knights list, because it's kind of out of left field. It's all War Dogs, no Big Knights, and it's using a custom subfaction using the Dark Forging subfaction ability. So we're Infernal Household, so we get access to the Infernal Surge, the Demonic Surge, excuse me. So you can take a Mortal Wounds to get a random bonus, either extra movement, +1 to wound on one of your ranged weapons, or Transhuman until the end of the battle, or until you start on your next turn. Or you can take D3 Mortal Wounds to pick that. So on top of that, we're taking Dark Forging, which extends the range of all the ranged weapons, and there's a lot of Gatling cannons in this list, between all the Brigands and Stalkers, Avenger Chain Cannons, excuse me. So those are all going to extend from 24 inches up to 28. So we're getting a little bit of a additional threat range on that. And then it also gives you +1 strength and damage on your heavy stubbers, which is pretty interesting. So every single model in the army has a heavy stubber, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Is that right? 13 War Dogs. Every single one of them has a heavy stubber, so 13 heavy stubbers. They're all strength 6, 2 damage. But the problem I foresee is that they are AP 0. So every time you fail one of those saves, it's going to be brutal. But you don't fail that often. If you hit somebody that doesn't have amazing saves, you're going to rip them apart. I can imagine like Orcs or something, where your saves are sort of mediocre, but you have a lot of multi-wound models. And then just being shot with, what did we say, 13? So 52 heavy stubber shots at 2 damage, in addition to all the other stuff, is a lot. So this feels like a little bit of a meta pick. But you can also, I guess, in some situations, like you roll up to +1 to wound, and you can get +1 to wound to the heavy stubber, and then suddenly you have you have 4 2 damage shots that wound up to toughness 5 on 2s, and that's pretty good. I think the benefit of the at least the Stalkers is that all of the Demonic Surge abilities really impact them a lot, because you can get the extra movement, so they can make melee with their their melee weapon. The transhuman's also good because they typically play aggressively, and then they obviously +1 to wound is good on either the chain cannon or the stubber. So we might just be rolling for those guys, and the other guys were like, I don't know, just let them do their thing. But yeah, a super interesting list, chat. This one is oh yeah, it lets you ignore Lookout, sir. Yep, for sure, chat. Yeah, you can shoot at characters with this too. So I guess there's some situations where it forces characters to play a little bit less aggressively. Maybe like, I don't know, if you're taking for Tyranids or something and you can shoot their Hive Tyrants, or like, I don't know. I guess you wouldn't want to shoot like Abaddon because he's a 2+ save. But I'm sure there's some matchups where you just get to peel all the characters out. Maybe even like Astra Militarum now, because they have all those big command squads. Now we're talking about it. Would I advocate for combined Chaos God Codexes with Demons plus Legions like an Age of Sigmar for 10th? Like in addition? No, I don't think so. I think the less we can like encourage like weird ally and combined army mechanics, the better, because those just create so many issues. So right now, like every faction between Astartes and Demons being separate, I think is fine. But if you push them into individual god codexes, then suddenly you have to cross-pollinate to create a mixed chaos army, and it just becomes like a nightmare. And I wouldn't want to have the same data sheets be printed in multiple codexes, because that creates all sorts of problems. We already sort of have that issue right now, where like a Predator or a Land Raider in Chaos Space Marines is like dramatically different than the same thing in Space Marines, and it's just bizarre. It's just super weird. Yeah, I wouldn't love that. Yeah, they're also wounding Abaddons on 5s, yeah. Seems good. So yeah, I don't know. It's a super interesting list. I like that it went 3-0. I do wonder where Chaos Knights are going to end up, because they didn't get too many buffs in the data slate, but they did get a buff to one of their secondaries. They got a buff to their action secondary, right? Storm of Darkness, which is it's certainly very consistent. And for an action secondary, it's extremely consistent. You typically will get 3 objectives scored on it, which gets you 9 previously, but now gets you 12. And that's like a huge cutoff point. So I think that it's not a huge change for Chaos Knights, but it does increase your like average score slightly. I'm just worried that if we move into this meta that I'm kind of anticipating, where it's just these huge gun lines just slugging it out with each other, I'm worried that I'm not sure Chaos Knights have what it takes to compete. Although they have like that -1, that's what side 12 inches, -1 to be hit. Maybe that's enough. I don't know. We'll see. You keep them as separate factions, so no soup. And the issue is worse. Yeah, I don't. It feels. I don't know. I don't know if I love that. I think right now, like the way it works right now, is fine. Having all of the different like Chaos Space Marine chapters as basically having their own codex is okay, because it lets you build them like more deliberately. And then Demons being mixed, I think, is good. I wish that they would differentiate soup demons versus mono demons like a little bit less, almost. Like I wish soup demons got a little bit more access to sub-faction abilities, and maybe you get an additional bonus for getting mono demons, but I think that's mostly a symptom of Arks of Omen. But I think that the way it's constructed right now is fine. I don't think it needs to go over some sort of massive overhaul. The Bodyguard has the Militarum Auxilia keyword, which gives the unit the keyword, and that allows them to squeeze into Scions detachments. Does it have that as a faction keyword? I don't know about that. But also, like, what's... Like, are people taking Scions detachments? Is that... I guess... Oh, so it's you can take Scions with, like, regular... Militarum is the thing right now, so you can just get additional like HQ slots if you want. Yeah, so they have the unit keyword, Auxilia. And then is the... Okay, so the contention, right, is that you can flip your scions to troops if everybody has Auxilia. So you can have like a Acadian command squad that, because it has the Auxilia keyword, then turns Tempestus scions to troops. Is that kind of where we're going with this right now? You can deep strike the bodyguard. Shows how much I know about this new Militarum Codex, chat. Yeah, so what lets the bodyguard deep strike? Is that a stratagem? That would be weird, right? Because then you could deep strike like Bulgrin. How does that work? Is that a pre-battle stratagem? No. Or like if you add, I don't know, if you add an Ogre to a like a Tempestus command squad unit, can you add them to the attachés to Tempestus squads? What a bizarre mechanic. Like, I think I understand. They wanted to like reduce the bloat on each of their data sheets, so they're like, we'll just make one data sheet that interacts with like every command ability. But turns out might not be the best play. You could just print that guy in every data sheet and it probably wouldn't be the end of the world. So you can add them to command squad units. So you can add them to the Tempestus command squad. I don't think that's an issue. That you can, yeah, you can aerial drop your Tempestus command squad. Whatever. It lets you add a Castellan with a bodyguard. That might be a mistake. Yeah, I don't believe you can add bodyguards to Castellans. That might be a Battlescribe error. Because you add attachés to command squad units, and Castellans are not command squad keyworded. Right? So attaché models in your roster are added to friendly command squad units, which is Cadian command squad, Tempestus command squad, Platoon command squad. So yeah, I agree with you that like maybe it's a little bit funky that if you add an auxiliary attaché to one of these command squads, it basically counts as a Tempestus command squad to turn Tempestus scions into troops. But I don't think that's like the most abusive thing ever, right? Like you could have just taken a Militarum command squad or a Tempestus command squad, excuse me, and then like instead you're going to do something slightly different. I don't see any way to get, unless maybe Castellans have a special ability that lets you attach to them. Why wouldn't they just be called out in the attaché rule then? Oh, he can take bodyguards specifically? Oh, that's weird. All right, well, he does have a special rule, I guess. Wait, really? Are bodyguards different than attachés? Is that a different thing? Bodyguards. Oh no, that's just it's one of the data sheets. The attaché data sheets. Are these not attachés? What the fuck is this rule, chat? Hold up. What? Okay. So attaché models Oh, it's attachés and bodyguards is the rule. I get it. Okay. So I thought that
Attaché
they
is different than
had
bodyguard.
the attaché keyword, but they don't. So attaché is specifically this data sheet, and then bodyguards is a different data sheet. So attachés get added to command squads only. Bodyguards get added to any officer. And then because the bodyguard is an auxiliary, you can put it in a detachment to make it like an auxiliary detachment. All right, I get it. That's weird and stupid. Yeah, I think that's whatever. I don't think it matters so much. I don't think it's like particularly abusive, right? It just means that you can take a Castellan instead of a command squad to get Tempestus Scions, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't think you can deep strike the Castellan, right? Because the deep strike comes from the Tempestus Scion command squad ability. Yeah, he doesn't have an ability to deep strike. So basically, the complaint is that you could take like a 50-point Castellan instead of a 95-point Tempestus command squad or command squad unit to unlock your troop Tempestus Scions. Are we not worried about troop Tempestus Scions, chat? $15 units of OPSEC Tempestus Scions? I mean, I guess. That seems fine. You could take 15 units of a lot of different objective secured stuff in this faction. I don't know if I'm that excited about like Tempestus Scions doing it specifically. Instead of paying 11 points, instead of paying 60 points for infantry squads, you're paying 55 points for Scion squads. Oh no, Scion squads are in 10 model units anyway. You can't take 5s anymore. So you have to pay 110. Oh no, you can. Just what am I talking about? Yeah, you can. So you can pay 55 points. So you save a little bit and you get deep strike, but you get half as many models from just having normal guys. That's probably good. They have exploding 6s to hit, but no born soldiers, right? So like they actually don't do that much damage. They're winning everything on 6s for the most part. It's 15 units will become 8 very quickly. Yeah, it's mostly disruption, right, chat? And like you can score out behind enemy lines. Like your secondary game is like insane with a list like that. But what does 15 units cost you? 700 and 800 points? Eh, seems fine. Does it flip every Tempestus Scion to troops, or is it optional? Not that it matters, because you wouldn't have objective secured on the ones that aren't troops, but it would be funny if you could just fill the whole list with Tempestus Scions. What am I looking for? It's an detachment ability, right? Tempestus Scion units in the detachment have troops instead of elites. So this is why, like, we need a flowchart for list construction, because it's so stupid, right? So if you take, well, so what if you like build a detachment, right? Well, I guess it's impossible to build a detachment that has troops in it in addition to Tempestus Scions, and then also have the Tempestus Scions be turned into troops, right? Because there's no Militarum Auxilia troops. But what if so let's say you have like a Vanguard detachment, right? And you fill it with, wait, is this like actually unplayable? Are you actually allowed to play a Tempestus Scion Vanguard detachment? Because it's so weird that it's only Tempestus Scion specifically. Because you have to take 3, if you only put Tempestus Scion units in it, right? And then you complete the, you take the command squad, the Tempestus command squad, or the bodyguard command squad, or whatever. Then all your detachment like falls apart. Like you just can't put those two things together because then you would have more troops. In order to fulfill the elites requirement, you would have more troops in your detachment than you were allowed to play because you can only take 2 troops. It's so stupid. Whatever. That's dumb. 40k needs there needs to be a flowchart for like when you add units to a roster versus put them in a detachment or whatever, and there's like an order of operations to it. It's just that 40k list building's too complicated, and all these little abilities that trigger are very dumb. Yeah, you can't do a Scion Vanguard. It's just like, it's a funny thought experiment, right? Like, not that it matters, but it's hilarious. It's so stupid. Imperial Knights? No Imperial Knights list today, chat. We don't have any of those. Votan have been nerfed into the ground? No. No. Do not agree. I don't know if Votan might not like keep up with the top echelon. Like they may have just, I don't know if Votan have been nerfed significantly as much as they the best stuff has been made better, and that's not great for them, but I mean, Votan are still insane-o strong. All right, we talked about this funky War Dog list. Now we're over at the Bad Guys RTT. Speaking of Astra Militarum, we can talk about some Astra Militarum. This is a pretty standard Astra Militarum list, I think. So we're running Ursula Creed as the Warlord. Give +1 strength to range attacks on her orders. A Cadian command squad, 2 tank commanders, so 1 with Gatekeeper, the 3 damage gun, and ignores cover, and then another one with just no upgrades. The 3 heavy bolters and ignoring cover is kind of interesting. I kind of like that. 4 infantry squads with mortars, and then I think we are using heavy support as our compulsory, but we're just taking 4 infantry squads anyway because we have 4 heavy support options in this list. 2 Kazarkin, excuse me, 1 regular Tempestus Scion to fill out elites. Just to chill, I guess. 5 fast attack. Maybe we are in. Oh, so it's 2 individual Scout Sentinels and 1 block of 3 because we can't go over the 3 fast attack because they're not compulsory. The interesting thing about any of these vehicle squadron factions get like really flexible in Arks of Omen detachments because you can flip whichever slot you need to take as your compulsory, you can like flip your units. You can combine your units however you need to. You kind of like combat squad them, which is pretty cool. I found the same thing playing Carnifexes. You just put as many like Liebman Russ and Sentinels in your detachment as you want, and then you can just kind of move them around to different units however you need in order to fill out your slots. So Plasma Cannon Sentinels, 3 Armoreds, and then 2 individual Scouts. And then 4 Lehman Ross Executioners and a Chimera. Good stuff. So the Kazarkin units, we have the Veteran Guerrillas, so ignore cover within 18, I think. And then, or within 12. And then the other one is Mechanized Infantry, which I think gives them a bump once they jump out of a transport. So they're probably the unit in the Chimera. Yeah, so lets them make a normal move after disembarking, although they can't charge. So you can move 12 with the Chimera, dump these guys out, 9, move another 6, so 21 inch, plus the 12-inch threat on the Super Death. So one of them has the Barbican's Key, the other one's in a transport, so you get both of the Kazarkin units as kind of in the danger zone. The downside I see there is that you can't order them. So they actually don't get any of the sweet upgrades, so that's less exciting. I think that there is a stratagem for Mechanized Infantry, though. I think we talked about it on stream. Is that right, chat? Sounds like there's a lot of people in chat who would tell me here. You can get full rerolls from them when they disembark transports. So it's just core units. If they disembarked from a transport that turn. So you don't, I guess you don't need the the order so much. If you're getting, because yeah, you'll get the volley guns. So nobody is -1 to hit, and you're just rerolling wounds, so you're kind of just pushing for... Although rerolling hit rolls with overcharged last rolls is kind of what you want. I don't think there's another stratagem here for these guys. Am I right about that, chat? They might have squadroned some of the roughses to get around rule of 3, chat. You need a character to disembark with. Oh, you're right. Of course. Yeah. Do the chimeras hold enough for a unit and a character? I assume they do. I always appreciate when they give you character slots when you have 10 model units. Cannot find character chimeras on the page. They're 12 model transport. Yeah, 12. Okay. All right. I'll buy that. I guess like you could have Creed there though. It's weird that because there's only one character. There's only one model with orders. Oh, there's a command squad. So you can keep the command squad on the table and have Creed in the Chimera. All right, I'll buy it. I get it. I understand. Nice. Good stuff. Okay. We just talked about Astra Militarum for a really long time. Let's talk about Custodes again. We got more Custodes. So this one's from the same event. Emperor's Chosen. 2 Blade Champions in this one, which is interesting. So one of them has Superior Creation. The other one is Auric Exemplar. For the extra attacks. It's so... Blade Champions are such a weird unit. They only have a 3+ armor save. They don't have the 2+ that everybody else has. But they're kind of impossible to remove once they're in melee. But if you can get any other damage on them, they kind of fall apart pretty quickly. So 2 Contemptors, 2 individual Alarius Custodians. I think we're just playing... Yeah, we just played Elites as our compulsory, so we get the additional 3 slots there. So 2 Contemptor Achilles, a Vixillus Praetor, 2 Alarius Custodians to fill out the requirement. Then 9 Virtus Praetors, so we're back to this old build here, and 2 Caladius Grav Tanks. So the only access to objective secured in this list kind of feels like a Nephilim list, to be honest, out of Custodes. The only access to objective secured is the Alaris Custodians. Everybody else is not infantry or not core. But that's so much DACA in this list. The 2 Blaze Cannon Grav Tanks, 9 Salvo Launcher Shots from the Virtus Praetors, plus the Achilles Dreadnoughts. One has the... the Achilles just has the Big Spear, which is another 3 damage gun. So much... That's a ton of multi-damage. And then I guess, like, if the Blade Champions can just clean up in melee, that's probably fine. I know the Contemptors are... the Virtus Praetors are fine in melee too, but the Contemptors are a little bit low volume. I think they're only 5 attacks each, right? Even with the big punch. We talked about 2 Space Marines already, chat. We're done with Space Marines today. Oh, they do go to a 2+ in melee? Yeah, and then they can stance for invulnerable state in melee, right? Oh no, they become Trans Hitman in melee. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. And then they can swing either 4+ poison against monsters' vehicles, double attacks, or reroll wounds against characters with 3 damage, which is pretty good. I know that the melee profile is solid, like 6 attacks, like doubling to 12 if you need to, and then on top of that you have a Auric Exemplar, so you can double to 12 and then roll those again, which is pretty good. Although I don't believe the double attack profile can then also be split. I think you just get a single swing out of that because of the FAQ. They also grant +1 to charge against people they're engaged with. But the weird thing is that they're the slowest models in the unit besides the Alarius Custodians. So, yeah. Without a bike, I'm not sure how you're supposed to trigger that very often, but I don't know. I guess it helps a little bit. Yeah, I mean, the custodians are, you know, it's hard to shoot at custodian characters, right? Because the contemptors can LOS for them, the Caladius can LOS for them, and the Virtus Praetors do it until they've lost 2 models, because they each count as 2 for Lookoutser. So, yeah, that gets it is difficult to shoot the characters. I think the characters can mostly just like stand within the Virtus Praetor units and then threaten heroic interventions, because they have heroic interventions against additional heroic interventions against yeah, additional. They have the 6-inch heroic intervention permanently, and then they can go any direction as if they go closest to a character. So you can make it, especially if you engage with a character into like the brick of Virtus Praetors, they can make it so that they can almost always hit you, which is weird. Seems good. I like that. It'd be cool if more Blade Champions showed up. I've never been like super impressed with Blade Champions, especially when you compare them to Shield Captains, but the I don't know, the efficiency is pretty solid. 120 points for like this little nuclear missile of a guy. I guess the other problem is that they're not super high strength. Their 4+ auto wounds is only 2 damage, although it is AP 4, and it's on hit rolls. So they probably plow you for like 6 damage, which is fine, I guess. And then their 3 damage swing is only strength 6, which is not that great. So once they hit high toughness stuff, they might struggle a little bit, but I mean, that's what you have friggin' blaze cannons for. I guess you probably shouldn't be worried about that. And Contemptor Achilles Dreadnoughts. All right, we do have one Tyranid on here, chat. In a shocking turn of events, and I really want to know what happened at this RTT, because this list is super bizarre. So people are in chat, we're asking for Xenos. We got one Xenos ready for you. Let's go. So we're playing Hive Fleet Kraken, and we've flipped our adaptive trait for heightened senses, which is you can fall back and shoot, which is pretty cool because we do have a lot of shooting in the list. I hope it doesn't get cut off. It does look like it got cut off a little bit here, chat. Let me fix that. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Nope, not quite. Come back. So we have it's a Scythe Tyranids at the bottom, chat. This list is super wild. So you can see there's some combos in here that are really interesting. Actually, it's a pretty creative list. So it's 1 Hive Tyrant with Shard Gullet, a Turvigon with Maw Claws and Adaptive Biology, so reroll wounds and extra attacks, and then a 5+ damage Neural all the time. A Neurothrope with Synaptic Tendrils, so we can give out 2 instances of roll extra dice. We've cut the Zoanthropes entirely, though, not bringing those guys anymore, so we don't have the Invulnerable Save available to this list. 10 Gargoyles, 28 Termagants with Toxin Sacs. So we've paid additional points to give them auto Gene Rot Might and melee, but the operative combo here is that you can pay a CP to make that happen in the shooting phase as well. It's normally 2 CP, but if you have Toxin Sacs, it costs you 1. So, you can be shooting 28 shots with, at like AP1, which is pretty relevant right now, and then getting those auto wounds on hit rolls of 6, and you can do that even when the unit falls back. So I think that the game plan is just going to be to basically push, like, just shove the unit into the center of the table, and even if they get engaged, you can continuously fall back, shoot whatever was engaging you, and regenerate the unit back to pretty close to being full, which is very cool. We then have the Terran Guard to keep the Hive Tyrant alive, Venom Thropes to keep the whole brick alive, and then the 2 Exocrines and the Psi Tyranids. And that's where things kind of go off rails a little bit, I think. So the Exocrines don't do anything in melee. They just have like a crappy 2 damage attack, and they have a blast weapon, so they suck when they get engaged. But with the ability to fall back and shoot, that doesn't really matter so much anymore. Same thing a little bit for the Psi Tyranids, I guess. The Psi Tyranids, I'm not so sure about. But we are Hive Fleet Kraken, so we have access to the extra move or the 8-inch advance. So you can actually, like, this guy threats 20 inches plus a charge, which is solid. If you just put him front and center, he pulls a lot of focus from the Termagant brick, and then just like probably eats into something and kills it. But you can't shoot your gun when you advance. It's like, I don't know, it's all sort of weird. So that's the one. That's the one where I'm a little interested there. Yeah, that heavy support slot, chat. It's pretty weird. So I don't know what was going on over here. I like the combos in the list. The fallback and shoot's really interesting, especially with the Termagant brick and the Exocrines. I think like that's pretty sweet. We don't have. I mean, I guess like we can kind of ape the Zoanthrope imperative by just exposing only the Hierodule, and then it has Dermic Symbiosis. But doing that and then also getting a 5+ an invulnerable save the next turn, pretty good. But you're paying almost as many points as a whole Exocrine for that unit of Zoanthropes. It's so stupid. What a dumb change. I don't know, man. So that's weird and strange. But yeah, this list is super interesting and creative. And I think we're gonna have to do that for Tyranids to get some W's now. And then this is gonna be our last list for today, chat. We do have some Adeptus Mechanicus to talk about. So we're back to Forge Rod Lucius. So +1 AP or +1 save, excuse me, against 1 damage in attacks, and then we also get the Solar Flare and the Transhuman ability, which is on someone. Does somebody have it? We have Exemplars of Eternity Marshal, so he gives the hit and wound rerolls. It's Radiant Blessing, I think, but I don't think we have it, so that's interesting. But otherwise, it's a bunch of destroyers, so 2 units of Cataphren destroyers. They do benefit a little bit from the extra survivability that Lucius gives you, but mostly they're just core keyworded now, so you can actually wombo combo with them. And then the 1 big unit of Skitarii Vanguards to get the stratagem, like enriched rounds, so they get auto wounds on 4+ to wound, or 4+ to hit now. And then we have a Data Smith, which is important because of all of the Castellan robots in the list. 2 units of Sicarians, 1 Infiltrator, 1 Ruststalker, and then the Fulgurite Electro Priests, so the big stick guys. Those guys are pretty strong because they do, being tech priests, not Skitarii, they do unlock the Fight Last stratagem. So you can actually sort of like multi-engage with somebody and then force them to fight last. And that makes it very difficult for you to like trade up into the Lucius army, which, you know, the downside obviously is that these armies that don't focus heavily on Sicarians tend to fall apart once you engage them, and having that Fulgurite Electro Priest unit there can help that quite a bit. 1 unit of Sidonian Dragoons, which I think is interesting. Some Cerberus Raiders, 3 Iron Strider Ballistari, and then the 3 Castellan Robots. So the biggest benefits I think that AdMech got here were the massive upgrades, huge glow ups to their secondary objectives. And one of those is that one where they grind you down, but it's with vehicles. And now I don't remember what it's called. They have Accretion of Knowledge, which is good if you have enemy vehicles or a lot of enemy characters, because it's basically just a strictly better. It's like a combination of Assassination and Bring It Down, if that's the case. Eradication of Flesh, excuse me, which is pretty solid. So you get 4 VP if more units were destroyed by AdMech vehicle units than you lost AdMech vehicle units. And importantly, that's units, not models. So only having 3 vehicle units and 2 of those being extremely difficult to kill means that you probably score that relatively often. There are not many armies that are going to be killing a Castellan robot brick that easily. and the Iron Strider Ballistari are so far away. They're tough to get to grips with. The Sidonian Dragoons are a little bit of the weird one here, but because they're vehicles and they fight in melee, they can kind of give you the opportunity to charge something if you need to get that kill for Eradication of Flesh. And then if you're able to do that consistently, that's probably an easy 12 and a relatively easy max. So yeah, that's pretty good stuff. Nice to see AdMac back on the winning, the winning route here. Was there a sisters list today? No sisters lists. Yeah. Model is 60 points too expensive. The Scythe Hierodor? Probably agree with you. It would maybe be, I don't know. Yeah, getting melee monsters to work successfully right now is very difficult, but maybe apparently somebody can make it happen. So I'm proud of them. Good job. I saw a lot of people switching to Haruspexes when the changes went through, but I don't know if I believe in the Haruspex quite yet. That everything else got worse. That unit didn't necessarily get much better. Yeah, pretty insane. So that's the last list we have to talk about today, chat. Some freaking Adeptus Mechanicus back on the undefeated the podium spot here, going undefeated, which is cool. I think the reintroduction of all these Cataphrons is cool. I think we may see some Breacher lists come back, especially now that you can sort of stack defensive buffs on them. So that will be strong. And then, obviously, the Skitarii getting huge buffs and secondary objectives getting buffed as well is big. And not to mention the fact that, so those Sidonian Dragoons and Iron Striders, right? The Sidonian Dragoons have a built-in -1 to be hit. And now get that permanent 5+ invulnerable save. So at 12 wounds with -1 to hit, 5+ invuln, they're still not the easiest thing in the world to kill. Just pretty good. No Black Templars today, champ. But yeah, everybody, that's all of the lists. That's all the events that I could find this weekend that used Arks of Omen. I think because LVO is using Nephilim, a lot of people stuck with Nephilim for this weekend and may still do so through next weekend. We're probably going to see a lot more Arks of Omen results come out next weekend, but whether or not GTs start using it, I don't know yet. We may see another week of Nephilim before GTs adopt the new stuff. First AdMech to go undefeated in 3 weeks or something. We talked about one. There was one at the end of last year we talked about. Yeah, interesting to see Cataphrons banner. 54 Meltas coming in drop pods can beat them pretty easily. I mean, maybe, but you have to get through all this other garbage, right? Drop pods are strong, but they're not you don't get access to the entire table, and especially because we have a solar flare in this list, right? Is there no solar flare in here, chat? What am I looking at? Is this even a Lucius list? If there's a solar flare, oh yeah, it's on the Cybernetica Datasmith. Wait, that's weird. Okay, well, there you go. Does the solar flare require that you reposition the character itself, or can you just reposition the unit? Because that makes a ton of sense, actually, if it's just if you can just send the unit off. I thought it was like Veil, where the unit comes with it. The Bears unit and up to 1 friendly uses core within 3. Yeah, so you can take the Datasmith with you, but then they just kind of leave. I guess that's maybe okay. They leave the robots behind, which is sad, but they can project a lot of force. They already have the infiltrators that have forward deploy, so they can screen out on the first turn pretty well. And then they have a lot, pretty solid MSU between all these little Cataphron units, the Sicarian units, and the Cerberus Raiders. So we have a forward deploy unit and a pregame move. So you're probably not getting to shoot anything important on the first turn. And then the second turn, if you've exposed anything at all, they're going to take that, the Vanguard brick, and jump it in the middle of the table and screen out a ton of real estate that turn 2. So maybe turn 3 you get to drop Meltas on them. unless you've played super aggressively and they have to come out. But if you do that, I think they just kill you with guns. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like... I don't think reserving multi-meltas is an automatic win into these lists, for sure. I don't think reserving multi-meltas is an automatic win in a lot of situations. Sometimes you hit people who don't have forward deploy, and then you just get to kill them, but not all the time. Last year didn't happen? Oh, thanks. That's good to know. I'll roll back my birthday one year. Change my age on LinkedIn. How's that? Don't think drop pods can come in on turn 1. No, the drop pods override mission restrictions. I think the only situation where they don't come in turn 1 is the Abandoned Sanctuaries now, which has a specific what's the word? A specific restriction against them. You changed how all the missions measure right now, which is super bizarre. Where's Abandoned Sanctuaries? Here it is. Oh, I scrolled past it. There it is. Yeah, reinforcements cannot be set up on the battlefield during the first battle round. So that one doesn't restrict drop pod placement, which is why drop pods don't get around it, but it just restricts where they're positioning, where they're forced to position. But you don't have to, but drop pods override the format rules. Wish Necron Immortals got a points drop to keep them relevant alongside warriors. Yeah, so drop pods say... Yeah. So, yeah, drop pods do, I guess, specifically reference mission rules, but I think that nomenclatures remain the same through Nephilim, right? Yeah. Oh, so I think it also may be that the rules... So the Nephilim rule... considers it a mission special rule? Where are we at on setting up here? Declare reserves and transports. Yeah, so in Arks of Omen missions, you can never arrive in the first battle round. So it's dictated in the reserve and transport rules, but it is a mission rule because it specifies the mission specifically. And the drop pod rule says you ignore mission rules that say you can't deploy on the first turn. Yeah, it's specifically because the mission pack specifies that it is a mission rule that you can't deploy on the first turn, right? If it didn't say that, then I think there would be some contention there. I agree for sure, but yeah, because it doesn't say that like blanket you can't deploy in the first battle round. In which case, there would be a question whether or not that the drop pod rule interacts with it at all. But because it says in these missions you can't deploy in the first battle round, I think that at the very least the implication is that way. And it's been played like that for like 2 years, so I think you would have a tough time convincing anyone to change course. Yeah, it's the same for Falcons and stuff. Yeah, it's been like that for I think since the beginning of the edition. I think that verbiage has remained basically identical since the edition has begun. All right, chats. Well, I think this has been a good discussion. So we saw some interesting lists this week. We saw some AdMech happen. Tons of Custodes. I know there's a lot of people who are... I don't know what you're confused about, chat. There is a mission rule that says you cannot deploy on the first turn. The drop pod ability says you ignore mission rules that say you can't deploy on the first turn. So it's very, very straightforward. So we saw some Adeptus Mechanicus. We saw a ton of Adeptus Custodes. I know. Well, it'd be interesting to see if Adeptus Custodes continue to do well in larger events. I think they may be pretty matchup dependent, and I know a lot of people are kind of thumbing their nose at Custodes right now. But I don't know. Custodes have been so good in the past, and they're not quite back to their old self, but they're very close. Yeah, big congrats to Toaster Boys. Do I think Black Templar, Crusader, or Impulsor spam? Where do I think they'll be? I have no idea, Chad. Oh, yeah, no, you can drop on turn 1, yes. Yeah, I think that the counter argument to not being able to drop on turn 1 is that the ability that says you can't is like in the format, but it references it as if it was a mission roll. So I think were it to be worded differently, there would be an argument to that effect, but I don't think that's the case. No return of Stern Guard drop pods. Yeah, I'd love to see some Stern Guard drop pods hit the table for sure. Those guys seem pretty sweet. You may not even need to drop pod them. Just anyone who like counts them stationary. Maybe Ultramarines could run them and they just stand inside of a... Or I guess they don't get Bolter Discipline with plasma guns. So yeah, you probably need to drop pod them and cheap melt those or something. I was considering if you counted a stationary and then moved and stood in a ruin and just like acted like a Kazarkin squad, it would be interesting, but you still don't get the double tap out at max range with those guys. You could see it with Dark Angels maybe, because they can Weapons of the Dark Age, those combi plasmas. That seems pretty solid. You just need to source a source of rerolls. Maybe it's like Samael is the guy. Is he your guy? Because he has a reroll 1 Zora, right? He does for any core unit. And then he moves like 21 inches. Yeah. So he can just jump over to wherever the drop pod is and give that unit rerolls, and then you can give them +1 damage. It is 2 CP for Weapons of the Dark Age. But you go to 20 shots at 3 damage. Nice. Although you might just want to be doing that on last battalion units, I guess. But a Stern Guard veteran costs less than a Plasma Talon Black Knight, so maybe that's better. I don't know. I'm so interested to see where Dark Angels end up. I think both versions of Dark Angels look so good right now. What do I think about Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminators? For Deathwing? I think that's fine. I think you're gonna run into the problems that you always did, but you can't. Oh, can Dark Angels not take Stern Guard veterans, chat? Oh no! Oh no! Yeah, I think that you're gonna like. The game plan hasn't changed significantly. You're still gonna be just like ground pounding up the table and hoping for the best. But there's gonna be a lot of armies that just physically can't stop you. And I think in a lot of situations, because you're so efficient defensively, you can just put your model, like deploy your models on the line, and that kind of gives you extra threat range. Whereas a lot of times you'd have to hide them because like shooting was just good enough to deal crippling damage on the first turn. I think if you have these big Storm Shield bricks, there's a lot of armies that just take a whole round of shooting and kill like 4 models, and then one of them comes back and then they cry. How would I know if you can't take Stern Guard veterans? Is it in... is it non-compliant chapters? Oh yeah, Stern Guard and Vanguard veterans cannot be taken from Dark Angels or any successors. No! What have we done? That's terrible. That's a good call out, chat. I appreciate you. I had no idea that was a rule. This is what's great about the 40k hive mind, is that there's too many rules for one single person to know all of them, and so it's good that we can all put our heads together and everyone can be good at least one faction. That's very sad. Now I'm sad. Throw Dark Angels out. They must be garbage now. They've all fallen. Well, putting I guess maybe that's why Dark Angels don't want to take Sternguard veterans, because they know you'd put them in a drop pod and then they will have fallen from their spaceship onto the ground. Man, that would have been sick. I guess that you're just on Inceptors, right? I guess really, what is the comparison? So it's 10 points per. It's pretty similar, right, between a Plasma Sternguard veteran and an Inceptor. In terms of shots per, I'm in Custodes right now. No wonder I can't find Inceptors. In terms of shots per points, it's probably about the same. Because this is the wrong IN Primaris unit. Fast attack. Can we talk about how many data sheets this faction has? Somebody needs to remove some of them. So you average 4 shots per with the plasma gun for 40 points. And it's 2 shots with the combi plasma for 20 points. So it's basically the same. But these guys don't need a drop pod. So it's actually probably more efficient. So maybe you're just on Inceptors. I think the like raison d'etre for Sternguard veterans is probably combi Maltas, if I would have to guess. Because at that point they are they are like legitimately more flexible than Inceptors. They're shooting higher damage weapons, and compared to, they're significantly cheaper than multi-Meltas out of Devastator squads, right? Because for you get 8 shots, so I guess you get 10 out of a Cherub, but you don't ignore the move and shoot penalty with Devastator squads. So if you're not playing Iron Hands, you probably want Sternguard veterans instead of Devastators. If you don't value the +2 damage as much, which is probably fine. Interesting comparisons. Run company vets with Storm Shield and Plasma. Ooh, I like that too. That's also a cool unit, right? That was back in that's real 8th edition energy where you had like the Wolfguard veteran Terminator units that had like 10 Storm Shield Plasma. Those guys were sweet. Combi Malta Sternguard versus Strategic Reserve Eradicators. So, that's an interesting question. I guess if you're taking the Melta rifle on Eradicators, the benefit, you basically pay 5 points for the extra range, which is probably good. It also depends on where your slots are at, right? Because the Sternguard veterans are elites, not heavy support. But if you're taking the heavy rifle, you probably want a way to ignore the move and shoot. So if you're strategic reserving them, you kind of have to be in like, I guess, Ultramarines or Iron Hands or Space Wolves, or Salamanders, I guess. And then you're just paying. You have the same number of shots. You have better damage because you double damage, or you extra damage out to 12 inches instead of 6, which is much better. But you pay 5 extra points, right? Because Eradicator is I can't find Eradicators. Eradicators are 45. Is that right? Yeah, 45, and then they get the double tap. But they double tap only if they can't advance and double tap, so they're much slower. Not that that matters if you're reserving. And then they have to direct fire, but that also doesn't really matter because you're only shooting somebody within 12. So it's like a trade-off. The Eradicators are probably better, But you can't drop pod them is the downside. But with 24 inches, you rarely need to. And I think generally speaking, I definitely like them over the Stern Guard veterans if you can ignore the move and shoot penalty with the big guns, with the multi-meltas and the heavy meltas. That's much better. And I guess they get the free multi-melta anyway, which is just an upgrade on damage slightly over the regular melta rifle. Yeah, so I guess if you're not drop podding them, you're always on Eradicators for sure. Oh, you can't remain stationary out of reserve. Yeah, but okay, I gotcha. But you can ignore the penalty. So it's only Space Wolves and Iron Hands then that you really want to be doing that? That's weird. God, that remain stationary rule is so stupid. Just a real solid indictment of Games Workshop's like rule design, right? Because it's like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. And Games Workshop loves to put in these yes, but. Normally you're supposed to yes and people in improv chat. But Games Workshop, they'll go to improv and they always just refute what the other person's saying. They're like, oh, I went to the market today and saw a giraffe. Isn't that weird? And the Games Workshop employee at the improv class goes like, yes, but giraffes aren't native to Nottingham, UK, so you couldn't have seen that. And then everyone's like, wow, what a spoil sport you are. Because Games Workshop just loves to create a rule and then add an exception to it where it just stops working in an interesting situation. It's just so stupid. God damn it. Now I'm mad. You made me mad, Commander Cha-Cha. Yeah. The remain stationary FAQ is so dumb. It's like, I don't know. There's way better ways to write rules. This just in, chat. Games Workshop terrible at writing rules. What a shocking, new, interesting revelation we've come to today on Tactical Tuesday. All right, we've talked about Space Marines and random stuff for a really long time, so I'm going to close out the stream. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. I thought we had some good discussions today, mostly just looking at rules, which is, I'm sure great content for everyone. I pretty love that. I will be most likely live. I'm probably going to be playing some games over the remainder of the week on TTS. I think I'm just going to try to grind some games with Tyranids and find a list that I actually like. You should expect to see a giveaway this week. I'm putting it down. And otherwise, yeah, I'm going to continue to do some sweet content. Philip, how would I build an Ultramarines list? It's interesting. I guess if you're like hard set on Ultramarines, you're probably in on the G-Man right now. Let's see what we're doing for Ultramarines. I like the G-Man, and then maybe like the heavy Eradicators, and then tactical doctrine stuff.
How would you build the Ultramarines list?
So I would be... So here's the G-Man. So he's like the big benefit. Gilliman and Tigurius, I think, are the two big benefits to playing Ultramarines. So he gives full hit rerolls and rerolls 1s to Ultramarines core and character within 6. And then +1 to advance and charge. So you want to brick with him in the center. I'm almost thinking that you're on for Devastator Centurions, as weird as it sounds. Can they be targeted by Tigurius' ability? Core character. That's stupid. Just kidding. Lame. So maybe aggressors then, because they're tactical doctrine guys that are kind of tanky, and you just take like sort of big bricks of them and run up the table. With those two, and then a Rites of War character, and then I think you're on like Gravis infantry, like Eradicators to shoot with. And you could play Redemptors instead in the center, I think is how I would go. So mostly what you want is you want kind of like a delivery system for Guilliman. So you want some sort of big brick in the center that Tigurius can target, whether that's like Redemptor Dreadnoughts or whether it's heavy infantry. Either one of those is fine. The downside, I guess, of the Centurions is that you can't target them with Tigurius ability, which sucks. But then, and then from that, you just take stuff that you want to benefit from the tactical doctrine, the super doctrine. So I like the heavy eradicators. They do like 3 mans with those with like a multi-melta, do enough damage. And then if they stick near Guilliman, they get full rerolls to hit, they ignore the -1 to hit, and they just shoot for 1 billion damage. And then, I don't know, maybe those Therngard are solid. Because they also get tactical doctrine stuff. That's the direction I would go in, for sure. I think. I like that. Gladiators with 3-roll ones. Yeah, that's solid. Are there any vehicles that you would like push real hard? The downside, I think, is that if you try to build... I don't think Ultramarines love the vehicle direction outside of their core units, outside of Redemptors. Because there are just factions that do it better. So, like, you could run Land Speeders or something, but the only benefit you're getting from them really is Guilliman's rerolls. His, like, expanded reroll aura, but you could just be playing Salamanders or Iron Hands with that stuff. How much is a Razorback these days? Are they good? A Hunsky? I don't know about that. A Hunsky for 2 last cannons? That's pretty okay. What's that compared to a Rhino? What's a Rhino now? 70? $80? What? For 20 points? Yeah. I guess you get half the transport capacity. But for 20 points, you get a twin las cannon on top? What are you talking about? That's great. Man, Razorbacks, they were like 140, right? Previously, if you take the las cannon turret? That's crazy. I don't know if there's any other direction you could go in. You could go with bikes, I guess. I don't think there are any bike squads that are particularly exciting. They can't take like cool heavy weapons or anything. They are kind of difficult to kill, though. Man, I wish you could target Centurions with Tigurius' aura, but I understand why you can't. Art of War guys talks about ignoring tactical and going hard into Devastator. I can understand that, because if you're taking vehicles and you get the hit reroll from Guilliman anyway, and you don't care so much about the not moving and shooting, but I guess it seems fine, but like at that point, why aren't you playing Iron Hands, right? Like if we're gonna play Ultramarines, we might as well play Ultramarine stuff. Are Armigers really popular for Custodes? They're for anti-infantry? I mean, they're anti-everything, right? Armigers are just really good at shooting. I think, if anything, Custodians are better at anti-infantry than the Armigers are. But the Armigers just give them long-range shooting that you don't have to pay Caladius points for, which is pretty solid. All right, chat. Good stuff. I am going to wrap things up for real now. So... thanks, everybody. I will see you all next week. Come hang out with me on Twitch. I'll be playing this week, doing some Arks of Omen gameplay. Stay tuned for a cool giveaway, I swear. I swear to God this time I'm going to do it. And I will see you later. Goodbye. Have a good week.